Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to C20 Policy of Dialogue. And we would like to remind that we will start the event in 5 until 10 minutes. So for all of you who participate, who will attend this event offline, and of course still in the foyer area, we would like to invite for all of you to come in inside the ballroom because we will start the event in 5 minutes. So once again, for ladies and gentlemen who still in foyer area, please come inside the ballroom because we will start the event in 5 minutes. Thank you.
The world is facing an unprecedented time where society, the government, and corporations need to move at the same pace and at the same time. Collaboration and breaking the barrier collectively is needed so everyone can recover together and stronger. The C20 represents the voices that are at the heart of every policy made by the people in power. These voices are essential to all the lives on this planet. Voices on the well-being of migrant workers and vulnerable groups, on access of global health and vaccines, on women empowerment and equality, to the issue of the environment's sustainability. These will be fought for through 7 working groups: vaccine access and global health, gender equality, environment, climate justice and energy transition, taxation and sustainable finance, SDGs and humanitarian, education, digitalization and civic space, and anti-corruption.
So COVID disrupted the school systems across the Pacific in every capacity. So even at university level, our biggest university, the University of the South Pacific, wasn't able to help their students stay in contact and finish their units and their courses.
We needed a lot of vaccines to come. For instance, since December, we have run out of stock of AstraZeneca. So there are many people who maybe took first jab and they are waiting to take the second jab.
Kita yang wira swasta ya, yang utama sekali yang paling dirasanya ekonomi. Kita nggak bisa kadang-kadang kalau kayak kaki 5 kita dagang begini, waktu kita dibatasin. Prokes ya wajib lah kita prediksi lagi begini kan. Itu aja kalau dampaknya gitu.
Masih banyak paradigma bahwa kami itu adalah orang-orang yang dikutuk, orang-orang yang menularkan suatu penyakit.
Recently, the Japanese government is promoting gender equality, but the progress is slower than planned. The gender gap in Japan is the largest among OECD countries. The youth are not happy living with conventional gender stereotypes.
These are the actual challenges that we need to address together. The voices, ideas, innovations, and solidarity of the society are key to a change at scale. The C20 brings these voices to the table of dialogue with the government and the people who are accountable for the change.
I think that what governments can do, especially the government in Fiji, is allocate more funds for education. So we need more teachers and we need more support for teachers.
The government has to procure more vaccines to support the citizens or engage more development partners who will support us so that we get more vaccines in the country.
Pemda pemerintah pusat buat membuka lapangan kerja yang nggak berbelit-belit persyaratannya, terutama kayak yang tamatan SMP, mereka cuman punya ijazah SMP buat bersaing. Ini kan susah gitu.
Tolonglah hadir di tengah-tengah penyandang disabilitas. Perhatikan untuk dari sisi kehidupan kami ini, terutama dari sisi ekonomi. Lakukan pemberdayaan yang bersentuhan langsung seperti wirausaha, karena sesadar-sadarnya bahwa penyandang disabilitas itu tidak semua memiliki latar belakang pendidikan yang baik.
Thanks to the civil society, we have seen some improvement, but there is still so much more to do. We, the youth, are striving for a Japanese society that respects individual people and their choices.
This is the time for us to work together and tackle challenges with the people and for the people. Collaborating hand in hand so we can give everyone the opportunity to not just survive, but also to thrive. Breaking the barrier of borders, ideologies, and beliefs, ensuring that no one will ever be left behind. It is time to move together to recover stronger. We're here to make your voices matter. We're here to make sure that you are heard.
You are heard. It's nice to have it. All right, everyone, good afternoon. All right. Also, good morning and good evening for all participants all over the world. And of course, welcome to C20 Policy Dialogue. Can we give a big applause for our special event for today? So once again, for all of you who attend at the Le Méridien Hotel Jakarta, good afternoon and welcome. And of course, good morning or good evening for all of you, the participant, online participant, who are coming and joining us from all over the world. First of all, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, may peace be upon us, and of course, we should thank God because for today's special event in a very healthy condition, we are gathered here for the special moment, offline and online meeting, and of course, to do something better to the universe. And as you see before at the pamphlet, the very, very iconic pamphlet, my name is Maria Christie. Please remember my name as the MC because with all the honor, I will be the master of ceremony for C20 Policy Dialogue, our special event for today. So, ladies and gentlemen, all distinguished guests, it's very a pleasure to be with you here in the stunning weather of Jakarta, Indonesia, at this beautiful place at Le Méridien Hotel Jakarta. And of course, again and again, to all participants who are coming from all over the world, welcome to our magnificent country, Indonesia. You can give applause if you want, it's okay. Just chill, take your best moment. I know you are enjoying your snack and still want to give hello or something like that. Thank you so much for your kind attention. And right now, I would like to invite all of you who attend at the ballroom to give some energy and spirit and say hi to our online participant. And we can see maybe at the screen right now. Hello, everybody who attend the meeting virtually. Oh, I see some name who waving the hand. And of course, right now, although we are joining this event offline and online, but we have to put some spirit, some intention, some energy. And I just want to say hi for all of you. I will mention the region, maybe for all the online participants who are coming from Asia Pacific region. You can say hi by wave your hand to the camera and say hi everyone. Wow, I can see some name and beautiful faces there. Thank you. And I just want to say welcome and say hi for all the participants who are coming from Africa. Hi. Thank you so much for opening your camera and waving your head to us. I know and we love the spirit. And of course, I just want to say again, welcome to all the participants who are coming from Europe region. Yay, I can see one beautiful ladies with the blue shirt, thank you. And of course, I just want to hear the spirit from USA region. Hi. I know the time difference is maybe 12 hours and maybe it's very, very early morning there, but thank you so much for your spirit and sending the best wishes for you from Indonesia. All right, ladies and gentlemen, right now, before we are moving on to our next session, I would like to invite each one of you, and of course, who attend in person in this ballroom, to stand up and give our utmost attention and respect for Indonesia national anthem, Indonesia Raya. Hadirin dipersilakan berdiri. You may have a seat, please. Thank you. So again, ladies and gentlemen, on this very special occasion, of course, please allow me to extend our warmest greeting to all distinguished speaker and participant. First of all, Excellency, the Minister of Health of Republic of Indonesia, who is represented by Mr. Kunta Wibawa Dasanugraha. The Secretary of the Ministry of Health also served as the chair of G20 Health Working Group. Hello, sir. Good afternoon and welcome. And of course, Excellency, the Assistant Minister for Macroeconomy and International Finance of the Ministry of Finance of the Government of Indonesia, Mr. Wempi Saputra. Good afternoon, sir, and welcome. Next one, Excellency, Deputy Minister for Economic Affairs, Ministry of National Development Planning, Mrs. Amalia Adininggar Widyasanti. Hello, Miss, and welcome. And of course, All Excellency Ambassador of G20 countries. And also, good afternoon and welcome to Excellency, the Chair, Co-Chairs, and Representative of G20 Working Groups. Hello, everyone. Welcome. And of course, Excellency, the representative of the European Union and International Organization. Hello, good afternoon and welcome. And of course, our Honorable C20 Chair, Mr. Sugeng Bahagijo. Hello, sir. Welcome and good afternoon. Next one, again, good afternoon and welcome to distinguished co-chairs, Sherpa and Sus Sherpa of C20 Indonesia. And distinguished C20 Steering Committee, International Advisory Committee, Troika, working group coordinators and members from all around the world. And next one, again and again, welcome to the chair and the co-chair of the G20 Engagement Group, our fellow journalists and collegiate media, distinguished guests, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, once again, allow me to welcome you to the C20 Policy Dialogue, our special event for today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, in Indonesia, we know tak kenal maka tak sayang. If you want to love something, we have to know more about it. And let me give you some information about our special event for today. because the 2-day hybrid policy dialogue is presented by the C20 Indonesia as a part of the advocacy work from the civil society to include grassroots aspiration in the G20 agenda. And of course, not only the voice of the people of the G20 countries, but also from the rest of the world, especially those who are from the poor and developing countries. It's okay to give applause. It's fine. Thank you. I love the spirit for today. It is very casual, but it's okay. And of course, this seminar is relayed on Zoom and live from YouTube Civil 20. And all the session on the seminar will be delivered in English and will be interpreted in Indonesia. So you don't need to be worried. And of course, for all of you who attend this event, all right, ladies and gentlemen, for online participant, you have to take a note that we have the interpretation feature on your Zoom meeting. The way is very simple. You may click the button on your screen located at the both bottom side with a globe symbol titled interpretation. So once again, for online participant, if you want to interpret it in Indonesia, don't forget to searching interpretation button at the Zoom meeting or from your camera. And of course, you can choose Bahasa Indonesia if you wish to translate to Bahasa Indonesia. And right now, for online participant, I just want to give you some attention because you may get the C20 Policy Dialect Information Pack by scanning the barcode on your screen. Once again, for online participant, if you want to have a policy dialect information pack, right now, online and offline participants, excuse me, you can scan the barcode right now because we will give you the C20 policy dialect information pack by right now scanning the barcode on the camera or maybe on your screen. I think everybody is get it right now. All good? All fine? Okay, we are moving on to our next session. And for this one, Excellencies, our distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please allow me to invite Mr. Sugeng Bahagijo, the chair of the C20 Indonesia, to deliver his welcoming remark on this lovely afternoon. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Sugeng Bahagijo.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to speak in Bahasa Indonesia. You have an English translation there, so pertama-tama terima kasih sekali kepada tim sekretariat yang sudah menyiapkan acara ini, yang persiapannya makan waktu lebih dari 2 bulan. So, salute to the secretariat. Yang saya hormati Bapak Ibu yang mewakili kementerian dan lembaga yang tadi sudah disebutkan, Bapak Ibu dari delegasi G20, Uni Eropa, Kedubes perwakilan dari Uni Eropa, Ibu Novi, dari berbagai kedubes yang ada yang tidak bisa saya sebutkan satu persatu. Pertama-tama izinkan kami menyampaikan secara singkat laporan mengenai acara ini. Menurut data yang dikumpulkan oleh panitia, acara hari ini dihadiri oleh lebih dari 100 peserta, baik dari internasional maupun dari Indonesia. Kemudian yang hadir secara in person. Kemudian ada 112 lebih yang hadir secara online. Juga dapat kami laporkan bahwa acara ini setidaknya melalui proses-proses yang diikuti lebih dari 285 CSO yang terlibat di dalam pokja-pokja atau working group yang ada di bawah Civil 20 dan meliputi 65 negara baik di selatan maupun di utara. Dan acara ini merupakan halfway atau merupakan tahap pertengahan sebelum nanti puncaknya acara Civil 20 Summit di bulan Oktober. Jadi di bulan Maret yang lalu, Civil 20 sudah melakukan kick-off meeting, dan selama Maret sampai sekarang bulan Juli, sudah banyak sekali kegiatan yang sudah dikerjakan oleh teman-teman di working group, termasuk diantaranya menyusun policy dokumen, konsultasi di dalam negeri, konsultasi di luar negeri, konsolidasi di antara anggota Pokja, dan tidak lupa engage dengan Pokja-Pokja yang ada di G20. Dalam hal ini saya ingin menyampaikan apresiasi dan ucapan terima kasih kepada G20 leaders dan juga terutama kepada pemerintah Indonesia yang sudah menyediakan ruang partisipasi, yang sudah menyediakan kanal partisipasi, sehingga Civil 20 bersama engagement group yang lain bisa menyampaikan, bisa menyuarakan concern isu-isu penting maupun usulan-usulan kebijakannya. Nah, yang kedua, saya juga ingin nyatakan pada forum ini bahwa Civil 20 memang layak untuk mendapatkan tempat, mendapatkan kursi partisipasi di dalam engagement group ini. Jadi saya ingin mengajukan beberapa pertanyaan yang bisa membantu kita memahami dan juga bisa mendorong Bapak Ibu semua lebih aktif memberi masukan kepada apa yang sedang digarap oleh Civil 20. Apakah Civil 20 punya dan memiliki suara yang khas dan berbeda? Apakah ada solusi-solusi yang spesifik, yang desirable dan visible dari Civil 20 untuk forum maupun substansi yang sedang dimasak dan untuk disepakati oleh G20 leaders? Jawabannya yes, afirmatif. Civil 20 punya solusi-solusi, punya usulan-usulan yang tidak saja desirable tetapi juga visible, bisa dilaksanakan. Tidak ada tepuk tangan, berarti masih. Karena suasananya dingin. Jadi. Yes, I said that the Civil 20 has the proposed solution, which is desirable socially, ethically, as well as visible socially and ethically. Saya mengambil dua contoh yang selama ini terus disuarakan oleh teman-teman. Pertama adalah usulan dari teman-teman di working group SDG dan humanitarian yang mengangkat soal sesuatu yang bisa disepakati secara internasional dan karena itu harus disepakati oleh G20 yang sangat berdampak pada nasib pekerja migran. Apa itu? Biaya remitansi yang mahal harus diturunkan dari level 12%, 13% menjadi level 6%. Dan ini sejalan dengan usulan atau kesepakatan SDG tahun 2015-2030. Itu satu contoh. Dan contoh yang lain adalah usulan dari teman-teman Pokja CSO agar G20 ikut memajukan, ikut menyuarakan mengenai pentingnya ruang demokrasi, mengenai pentingnya civic space, sehingga partisipasi dan kebebasan, baik kebebasan negatif, bebas dari, maupun kebebasan positif, kebebasan untuk, itu betul-betul bisa dijamin. Dan lagi pula tuan rumahnya adalah Indonesia yang merupakan negara demokrasi. Ini contoh yang saya sebutkan, dan masih banyak contoh yang lain. Mudah-mudahan Bapak Ibu dari kementerian dan lembaga dan leaders of G20 bersedia untuk membaca, bersedia untuk mempelajari sehingga teryakinkan, sehingga hal-hal yang belum masuk di dalam agenda resmi G20 akhirnya bisa dimasukkan. Tentu masih banyak contoh-contoh yang lain, usulan dari teman-teman Civil 20, ada usulan dari Pokja Pajak dan Keuangan, ada usulan dari Pokja Transisi Energi dan Lingkungan Hidup, dan seterusnya, dan seterusnya. Termasuk tentu saja tidak lupa Pokja Kesetaraan Gender yang di Civil 20 menjadi Pokja Disabilitas dan Kesetaraan Gender. Nah, saya tiba pada pertanyaan kedua, apakah Civil 20 menyuarakan kelompok rentan? Yes, afirmatif. Kenapa? Ya karena dari sisi Pokja saja kita sudah menyuarakan kesetaraan gender, di samping kita menyuarakan mengenai kelompok-kelompok disabilitas. Yang notabene di seluruh dunia secara universal kita mengakui mereka masih tereksklusi. Lebih detail nanti saya ingin kita semua membaca apa pikirannya, apa eviden-evidennya, dan solusinya seperti apa. Dan pertanyaan ketiga, apakah Civil 20 menyuarakan tidak saja negara maju, anggota G20, tapi juga menyuarakan negara-negara miskin di luar negara G20? Jawaban saya sejauh yang saya tahu adalah yes, afirmatif. Dan ini memang sejalan dengan concern maupun pendekatan maupun prioritas dari pemerintah Indonesia yang memang berusaha untuk menyuarakan tidak saja kepentingan kelompok G20, tetapi juga menyuarakan kepentingan negara-negara miskin yang tidak bisa membeli vaksin, yang tidak memiliki sarana dan prasarana untuk pulih dari pandemi. Saya kira itu saja yang saya ingin katakan, bahwa yes, ada banyak pikiran, ada banyak concern, ada banyak usulan juga. Jadi saya ingin menutup sambutan saya bahwa kalau dalam bahasa Spanyol itu ada dua istilah, protesta dan propuesta. Saya kira yang dibawa oleh civil society, baik Indonesia maupun internasional, bukan hanya protes, tapi juga propuesta. Propuesta itu usulan-usulan yang menunjukkan solusi-solusi yang harus ditempuh sehingga dunia kita menjadi lebih baik, lebih inklusif, sehingga G20 akan menjadi kendaraan, akan menjadi kesepakatan, akan menjadi leadership yang tidak business as usual, akan menjadi kesepakatan yang inklusif, yang memastikan no one left behind. Demikian saya berharap forum kita Policy Dialog ini bersambut dengan baik, ada banyak tambahan usulan, ada banyak juga suara-suara yang kemudian bisa diolah menjadi dokumen versi final yang siap untuk dibahas, diolah lagi pada bulan Oktober nanti dalam acara yang nanti disebut sebagai C20 Summit. Demikian Bapak Ibu yang bisa kami sampaikan, mudah-mudahan acara ini merupakan undangan untuk partisipasi aktif dan ini upaya kami agar tugas kami memastikan, memfasilitasi partisipasi dari civil society yang per definisi Indonesia dan internasional dapat terlaksana sebaik-baiknya. Demikian kurang lebihnya, mohon maaf. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, the chair of C20 Indonesia, Mr. Sugeng Bahagijo. Terima kasih Bapak Sugeng, luar biasa. Kita boleh berikan tepuk tangan sekali lagi untuk Pak Sugeng. And of course, just like Mr. Sugeng said earlier, that we are still practicing the health protocols. Maybe your smile is hidden behind your mask, but it's okay. The spirit and the fire, we still can make it better and better for this special event for today. And right now, maybe you can say from the friends behind you or on the left side of you, be ready. You say it right now to the person behind you, be ready. Boleh dikatakan loh sama samping kanan kirinya ya, be ready, bersiap-siap untuk hari yang luar biasa. So ladies and gentlemen, after this one, I would like also to invite to the digital podium, Mr. Kunta Wibawa Dasanugraha as the Secretary of General of the Ministry of Health of the Republic of Indonesia, also serve as the chair of the G20 Health Working Group to deliver his warm remark. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Kunta Wibawa Dasanugraha.
Thank you. Distinguished guys, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, allow me to express my appreciation and gratitude for the opportunity given to interact with the C20 or C20 Policy Dialogue Forum. It is indeed part of our commitment as a democratic nation to promote an inclusive approach in Indonesian G20 presidency, including for having regular interaction and dialogue with civil society. To this forum, provide an ample space between the C20 and the G20 working groups to accommodate the recommendation of civil society as a commitment of the G20 leaders. We greatly appreciate the role of C20 in supporting the Indonesia G20 presidency, particularly through your continued support and constructive inputs to the G20 health agenda with the Ministry of Health. I understand that G20 representatives had been invited and attended our first and second health working group meetings last month in Jogja and in Lombok. I hope that the G20 will also have the opportunity to attend our third or final health working group meeting to be held in Bali in August. Colleagues, as we all aware, the Indonesian G20 presidency is focused on the three main pillars, namely global health architecture, digital transformation, and energy transition. It clearly shows that the health issue plays a central role in our G20 presidency. Furthermore, under the G20 Health Working Group, we have developed three priority issues with the overarching goal to strengthen the global health architecture. These health priority issues include one, first, building global health system resilience. Second, harmonizing global health protocol standards. And third, expanding global manufacturing and research hub for pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response. In order to strengthen the global health architecture, we need a strong partnership and sustainable support from all stakeholders, not only from the G20 member countries, but also from the G20 engagement group. Furthermore, we are of the view that in order for our health system to be sustainable and serve its purpose, we should put people at the center of our national health development and as an integral part of the health system itself. Also, we should be able to pool and mobilize necessary resources, both human and financial resources, to support the operationalization of the health system itself. Moreover, the role of government and non-government sectors is critically important in ensuring the sustainability and effectiveness of the health system. Government alone will not be able to build a resilient and effective health system. We understand about that. And active support from all the non-government actors, most notably private sector, civil society, academia, and the community itself is needed. Colleagues, we understand that with almost 500 civil society organizations across the globe, the C20 has enormous potential in making an impact on our collective effort in strengthening global health architecture. It is proven that together we can make impact. However, we should redouble our efforts since we are now seeing increasing numbers of COVID-19 infection and death around the world. I am pleased to share that in building global health system resilience, we managed to advance the establishment of new financing TPR mechanism. We call it Financial Intermediary Fund or the FIF. Maybe Pak Wemby and here too. And now we will continue to discuss further the utilization of the fund that will support the pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response program at national, regional, and global level. Moreover, we will also advancing effort for equal access to countermeasures, including through expansion of global vaccines, therapeutic, and diagnostic manufacturing hubs to developing countries, as well as strengthening the global network of scientists in virology, immunology, epidemiology, and other disciplines related to health crises by establishing research hubs in developing countries. Colleagues, I hope that the outcome of this meeting will not only benefit to the C20 community, but will also contribute positively to the ongoing conversation and effort in strengthening global health architecture. In closing, let me reiterate that we look forward to working closely with you all to achieve our common goal. On that note, allow me to wish you all a very productive and fruitful meeting. Thank you.
Once again, can we give applause for Mr. Kunta Wibawa as the Secretary of the Ministry of Health of the Republic of Indonesia and also serve as the Chair of G20 Health Working Group. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, I know that you guys are the people. So we believe that the role of civil society is in the G20 is indeed important because they provide expertise and of course they hold government accountable, they provide balance, and last but not least, they are collaborate. Am I right? Can I hear the spirit again? Because I'm so blessed that I'm gonna be the master of ceremony, but you guys are the people. We are the part of C20, of course, G20, everyone. And of course, we can give it up for all civil society all around the world. And right now, I would like to invite you because I know maybe in the ballroom, the weather is getting cold, right? I'm not alone, right? It's okay. But right now, I would invite for all of you to stand up because we will give some appreciation. You can stand up right now because we will have to, we will give the standing ovation for the people, civil societies all around the world, participant for Zoom, and we give digital applause for all the people who is working out for C20 and G20 events. once again, congratulations for us, and may the spirit and the fire is keep on going. Thank you so much. I appreciate the spirit and the applause. You can make back have a seat. And of course, right now, we all already listen from the people, the chairman, the figure, and right now, we will hear some voice by the participant who are joining us today in the ballroom. And I just want to ask Mr. here, hi sir, how are you? What is your name? Maybe you introduce yourself.
I'm Parminder from India.
Wow, he's coming from India, everybody. So, may I know your name, please?
I'm Parminder.
Parminder. So, sir, I just want to ask you some question. What do you think that the importance of the dialect forum in G20 process?
Well, I mean, G20 represents some of the world's largest countries, and when they get together and discuss and decide things, they set the norms for the world. And obviously, then there needs to be civil society voices in, and as others have been saying, that C20 brings not only from these 20 countries, but from across the world, voices to influence that dialogue.
From 1 to 100, how exciting are you about this dialogue today?
Yes, very excited, and it's a long chain, and I'm sure things will improve.
Wow, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Parminder Jester, right, from India. So maybe I want to ask from my right side, because Mr. Parminder is represented from my left side, the right side, and I want to ask some beautiful ladies maybe, right? Okay. Not everyone, everything is okay. Why everyone are like so scared? The MC is getting here. Oh, no. I don't know what to answer. It's okay. Hello, Miss, how are you? May I know your name?
Nama saya Eka, saya dari Indonesia.
Wow, Mbak Eka dari Indonesia. Kita boleh berikan tepuk tangan buat Mbak Eka. So Mbak Eka, would you answer in bahasa or in English? In bahasa nggak masalah ya. Kata dia, untung ya boleh pakai bahasa Indonesia. Nggak masalah. We'll be interpret in English for the online participant. So Mbak Eka, menurut Mbak Eka sendiri, boleh tahu nggak usianya berapa?
35 tahun.
35 tahun, masih muda ya. Dari semangat anak mudanya menurut Mbak Eka sendiri, seberapa penting dan juga impactful dari C20 Indonesia Policy Dialogue Meeting? Karena kita tahu bahwa C20 it's also part dari G20 dan ini akan berlangsung terus dan sebuah momentum yang bagus buat Indonesia juga. Silakan Mbak Eka.
Menurut saya ini adalah momentum yang sangat baik bagi masyarakat sipil untuk mewakili suara-suara dari masyarakat di dalam forum internasional dan mempengaruhi seluruh dunia.
Waduh, 30 detik agak-agak cepat ya, seperti jawab question Miss Indonesia ya. Mbak Eka, terima kasih banyak. So is there anyone here want to also give some comment maybe? No, but I know this person is very excellent and want to hear it, and I know that her opinion
also have voices to say to the world. And this is our chance, and the Indonesia is holding the presidency as well. So I think this is a very good chance especially for the poor and developing countries, represented by Indonesia probably, can have their voices for a better world, for inclusive and also more equal policy through the G20 forum, I guess.
Once again, thank you, Intan, and best of luck for us. And of course, maybe for online participant who wants to give some opinion, please raise your hand and wave to the camera, because our team will spotlight you and unmute your voice. Once again, is there any participant who want to give something about the C20 policy dialogue of today? It's okay. You can give your voice, giving your opinion, and we would like to make it you into spotlight. Unmute your microphone. Is there any? Team? No? Not yet? Not yet. It's okay. Maybe they need a time. Oh, yes. Okay. Hi, hello. May I know your name, please? Where are you come from?
I'm Maria Maninta from Indonesia, co-chair of Labor 20.
Wow. Okay. Sorry, the name?
Maria.
Maria, Miss Maria, Ibu Maria ya. Silakan Ibu Maria, mungkin ada yang ingin disampaikan terkait harapannya dan juga opininya untuk event kita pada sore hari ini. Silakan Bu Maria.
Terima kasih, kami kira event untuk policy dialog ini sangat penting untuk menyuarakan aspirasi masyarakat yang ada dari beberapa isu yang diangkat oleh C20 dan sekaligus mensinergikan dengan isu-isu yang diusung oleh engagement group yang lain, juga working group yang lain, supaya ini semua bisa menjadi satu kesatuan dan bisa tertampung aspirasi masyarakat di forum G20. Terima kasih.
Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Maria, thank you so much Ibu Maria untuk semangat dan juga aspirasinya. So right now in this special moment before we jump into our special talk show, because I know that it is gonna be a history for us, let's celebrate this with a photo session. I know that everyone here and for the participant who joining online may be confused how to take a picture, but right now we would like to invite the representative to come to the stage and take a picture together. The first one, I would like to invite coordinator of the working groups. Please, you can join us to the stage, in the middle of the stage, so we can take a picture together. Ya, silakan Bapak Ibu yang merupakan anggota dari koordinator of working group, silakan di depan panggung. Kita hanya ambil beberapa saja perwakilan ya, it's okay. We only take a representative to take a picture, and next one I would like to invite our VIP guest. And last but not least, for all the leaders, you may join us to the stage to take a picture and listen the guidance from the camera and the team. So for all of you who being an online participant right now, we are in a photo session time, and it is represented by the coordinator of the working group, our VIP guests, and all the leaders for C20 Policy Dialogue today. Bapak Ibu sekalian, kita akan mendengar arahan dari kameramen dan juga tim yang bertugas. Okay, once again, I would like to invite all the coordinator of working group, all of our VIP guests, and all the leaders. Bapak Ibu mohon maaf, boleh dibuka sedikit jalannya? Ya, baik. Can we give applause for our representative for photo session today? Thank you so much, everybody. Yes, it's okay. All right, we have to listen to the camera person right there. Are the composition is okay? Okay, all good? We count down from 3. Oh, we have to open the mask or not? Mau buka masker atau tidak? Oke, mungkin bisa dibuka maskernya sebentar. Kita akan berfoto bersama. Counting on 3. 1, 2, 3, and cheers. Okay, one more time. Counting on 3. 1, 2, 3, there you go. Or maybe there is a C symbol because I see someone making a gesture with C for C20. All right, for C20, 1, 2, 3, and cheers. And of course, for all of you who joining online, you are still in frame. It's okay. You can open your camera, you can make a gesture hand to the camera and giving your best pose and best smile. Once again, thank you so much. That was the photo session who is represented by the coordinator of working group, our VIP guests, and all the leaders, right? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, our distinguished guests, this is the main event for today because we will have a special talk show. And for the next session, the C20 talk show will come to you guys with a special theme questioning the G20 recovery strategy when the brink of global recession is inevitable. So without further ado, I will pass over my stage and of course my role as the MC with the one and only our lovely moderator for today. Please welcome Mrs. Vidya Dinker. With
music in the background, all we can do is dance a bit. But now is the time when we get to serious business, right? So she took us through a fun time, and now we come into a place where we got to listen very keenly and push very hard. So, on the flight here, someone asked me, so why are you going to Jakarta? And I explained to them, and they were just listening. And then I said, but however much we push, the G20 won't listen to us. Honest to God, that's what I said. Okay, the G20 will not listen to us. And so we have an uphill task, but we are used to uphill tasks. We are used to fights, and we are used to dialogue and engagement too. And this time we come with renewed hope. Hope that the G20 will actually listen to the C20, that the C20 and what it says, all that the people and communities they represent, the civil society groups, and what they are saying about their lives, about their hopes, about their aspirations, are actually understood this time. Some people say this is the wrong time for the C20, for the G20. It is a difficult time for all of humanity. And some people will say, this is the time the G20 leadership, the elite boys club that the G20 is, will not listen to civil society recommendations. This is hardly the time for a good civil 20 push at the G20. And yet, it is the best time, really. We've all been through a pandemic together. The rich nations, the elite, and those of us who live in middle income or lower income countries, we've all been through years of the pandemic. We know it will stretch long. We know what it has done to our communities, our people, our families, etc. And we know also what is happening in Sri Lanka, right? And I see a palpable fear. I was in Nepal end of June, and everyone, from the taxi driver from the airport to those who are serving us in the coffee shop, everyone was saying it's only a matter of time when Nepal goes the Sri Lanka way. In India, and we know that we are a pretty resilient economy in comparison with some of our neighbors, there is the fear among the common person, among the mother, among the father, among, brothers and sisters for each other. There is a real fear that recession will come home. When you cannot afford to buy medicines, or you cannot afford to buy food to put before your child, there is a real fear. And therefore, I think it is a good time when leadership that is responsible, that is accountable to its people, should listen. And that is why we are here in Hope, and we have a full house, because we believe that this policy dialogue will go well, we will be listened to, it is the right time, and there is no tomorrow. It has to be now. It's already too late. It's not just climate activists who will say, oh, the end is near, it's too late, we need to do something. Really, we have seen that it's all about actually saving ourselves. Some of us in civil society think so highly of ourselves. We think we're going to save the world. Let's really think about it. We're only saving ourselves. The planet will remain. It's the decisions that we collectively take which determine our collective future, because the human race is so vulnerable. And we have learned this through the pandemic. We are learning this because we are in a war. So it's an unprecedented time, and it's a good time to pull up our socks and to do the right thing. To enter into our dialogue space, because we have today and tomorrow, where the C20 Indonesia policy dialogue meeting continues. We will begin a dialogue today on this stage. And for that, I'm very happy that we have distinguished panelists, both in the room and on Zoom. I'm becoming quite a poet. So, room and Zoom together, I'm very happy to introduce our first panelist. He's Mr. Indonesia G20 Deputy Finance. That's the easiest way to describe him. But let me give you a bit of an introduction before you even see him. You have seen him, but whatever. He is the Assistant Minister for Macroeconomy and International Finance of the Ministry of Finance of the Government of Indonesia. He actually started his career with the Ministry of Finance long back in 1995, years of experience, and has served the ministry in various capacities, including the Directorate General of Customs and as head of Customs Patrol Office way back in 2011. Thereafter, he has been Deputy Chief of Staff of the Ministry of Finance, thereafter Chief Change Management Officer of the Central Transformation Office, and then Head of the Business Process Division, Organization and Business Process Bureau, and yet again, Director of the Center for Policy Analysis, and that's why he's the right person to be here, and Harmonization, and Chief of Staff of the Ministry of Finance. Really a biggie in our midst. He has had really extensive experience on the transformation and reform program of the Ministry of Finance, and therefore, I think I called him Mr. Indonesia G20 Deputy Finance. So in addition to his current role, this is a man who juggles many, many things together. So he has also been appointed as the Indonesian G20 Finance Deputy, you know. So Ministry of Finance and this, plus he's the ex-officio governor of the International Fund for Agricultural Development. In many of our countries in Southeast Asia and South Asia, this is such an important position with so much responsibility on behalf of so many people. So we are proud he's here. And until last month, he has been the ex-officio director for the Constituency 11 of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, the AIIB, the Chinese-led bank that we must all know about, and is also head of Secretariat of National Committee for Islamic Economic and Finance right now. Mr. Vempi Saputra, please join me on stage. Give him a big hand, otherwise you'll get no dinner. Come, sir. You can take up the middle chair. Yeah. So here we've put him in the spot in the middle so that from either side, we can push at him, okay? So our next guest is, there's Nadia and Tove who are joining us online, and Dr. Amali too. Our next guest is Bini Buchori, and Bini, you are to take up position here while I introduce you. Do come up. So Bini Buchori must be known to many of you, right? What do you know about her? Tell me, I met her over dinner that she bought me last night. Well, she is someone who spanned the two firmaments of the CSO space and the political space, right? And very well. So let me introduce you to Bini, and I am looking for her. It's a rather long introduction, which I have cut short mercilessly, Bini. So, an experienced communication and stakeholder engagement advisor with a wide network that spans civil society and politics. She has served as senior advisor at the Executive Office of the President of the Republic of Indonesia from 2015 to 19, and is currently Director of Engagement at Landscape Indonesia, as well as the chair and co-founder of Indo-Vibrant Strategic Advisory Consultants. Bini has spent more than 20 years in the NGO sector, where she has led national policy advocacy initiatives focusing on poverty reduction, social policy on universal health care, and promotion of a green economy in the national and subnational parliament. Gender is the lens through which she likes to approach issues that are dear to her. And that is why we are so privileged to have Bini on stage today. She has the full length and breadth of experience working in both the NGO sector and in the government space, and possesses first-hand experience in advising political parties on public policy and communication strategy, which is why we're happy you're here. Our online guests there's Toby riding on the right, and there she is, and Nadia up there with her beautiful curls. Remember, she's going to be hard-hitting, so don't go by the smiles of the two women. Okay, I will introduce them when we're actually going to listen to them. Shall we begin this dialogue? So there is another person who will join us online, and that's Dr. Amali. This is so in a sense, I feel that all of us are trying to make sense of what is happening currently in the world, right? And maybe for context, I should go to one of our online participants. I will call upon Nadia Dar. And Nadia is head of Oxfam International Washington, D.C. office and oversees Oxfam's engagement and advocacy on the World Bank Group and the International Monetary Fund across a range of issues, including the COVID-19 response and financing, inequality, public services, climate change, and civic space. Really a large spread. But when you're looking at the World Bank Group and the IMF, you need to monitor all those spaces. Before joining our Oxfam, Nadia spent 7 years at the Bank Information Center, where she managed the Yemen program and was policy manager for the Middle East and North Africa team, promoting transparency, participation, and accountability in development finance operations. Nadia, give us a sense of where we stand today. There is this feeling of impending doom, of recession, of the war having ramifications that will far outlive, the war itself. Give us a sense of your feeling. Where are we currently? Yes.
Thank you, Vidya. Can you hear me okay?
Very clearly, right? What about
Wonderful.
the person at the end of the room? Can you hear Nadia well?
I will speak up if needed.
Okay, great.
Okay, well, selamat malam. Thank you all for inviting me, and I do wish that I could be there in person, but I'm happy to feel your energy and to be here virtually at least. So, Vidya, you asked me to give you a sense of where things stand. And I feel sad that every time, we have these kinds of discussions, every few months, it seems that more is being added to these compounding crises that we're facing. But what I want to start the discussion with is really giving a sense that what we're seeing is a completely different reality for lower income countries compared to rich countries, a different reality for poorer households compared to richer ones. To start with the pandemic, of course, it continues to be with us. We still have a major crisis on our hands, despite what many would wish to believe. And especially in lower income countries where vaccine access is still a major, major concern. Only, well, 3 in 4 people in rich countries are vaccinated against COVID-19. Just over 1 in 7 is vaccinated fully in poorer countries. So imagine around 87% of people in lower income countries are still not vaccinated. And we know that this has created many, many unnecessary deaths. In fact, there is a statistic that shows that almost 600,000 deaths could have been averted had there been more vaccine equity. And we have obviously failed to reach the target of vaccinating 70% of the world by mid-2022, and largely because poor countries have constantly been at the back of the queue. And I want to contrast that with the fact that there are 40 new pharma billionaires in the world today. And that's what I want to keep telling you through this story, is what is happening for poorer households, for poorer countries, compared to what is happening to the wealth at the top. Now, on the war in Ukraine and food prices, before the war in Ukraine, we had already seen far more than 100 million people pushed into poverty as a result of COVID-19 and its impact. And many of the estimates that you see do not even factor in the rise of inequality, which has most certainly happened, as the story shows. And now the UNDP has said that so far 71 million additional people have been pushed into poverty just in the 3 months since the start of the war in Ukraine. So just between the 3 months after March 2022. So it's inflation and greed. It's not just, inevitable prices increasing. This is inflation and greed by corporations in many instances, pushing people to the brink. And the food that people could afford yesterday is simply no longer attainable today. Food inflation in East African countries, where tens of millions of people are caught in an alarming hunger crisis, has increased dramatically. It's reached a staggering 44% in Ethiopia, which is nearly 5 times the global average. So people are dying at a horrific rate in Eastern Africa. Of course, there is this horrible drought happening, but it's been exacerbated by the war in Ukraine, and it is pushing food prices to skyrocketing levels. And I want to contrast that with the fact that there are now 62 new food billionaires. So lower income countries are struggling to keep their people afloat in this moment, right? Where people don't have food, people don't have vaccines, there's a health and economic crisis, yet lower income countries are having a hard time with the fiscal space, the financial resources to keep their people afloat. And while we want them to be spending money on their people, instead they're spending money in large way by paying external creditors. We're on the precipice of a serious debt crisis that is in the context of this COVID pandemic, in the context of this crisis in Ukraine. And those with the power to do something about this debt crisis are watching this fire burn, but they are not acting. They're not acting nearly as quickly or as dramatically as we need to. Since 2021, the IMF has warned that 60% of least developed and other low-income countries are already at high risk of or are actually in debt distress. Every dollar of aid going into these least developed countries, $2 is going back to debt servicing. Lower income countries' debt service burden has become simply unbearable. There is not enough resources for them to pay into social sectors, to have health, to have education, to have the social protection that we need. In Africa in 2021, debt servicing accounted for 51% of budget revenue. This is absolutely a major problem. That was in 2021. In 2022, the picture is even bleaker because of these rising food and energy prices hitting countries hard, draining their reserves. And it's correlated with with the interest rates rising, right? So with every 1% of increase in global interest rate, that's adding $35 billion in interest payments for the poorest nations in terms of their debt payments. And while countries are facing this ever deeper debt crisis, for no fault of their own for the most part, they're now heading down a terrifying path of austerity because of this squeezed fiscal space and the inability to spend and to prioritize, because it is a political decision on where countries are prioritizing their resources. But this terrifying path of austerity, unfortunately, is being backed by those of the likes of the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, which I spend a lot of my time looking at, as you mentioned. And we don't need to imagine or just theorize that this is what the IMF is doing. We have actually researched to look at what is included in the IMF programs that are coming out these days. And our analysis demonstrates that the majority of recent borrowing countries are being required to adopt fiscal consolidation, austerity measures as a condition of financing. That's only going to deepen hardship for the most vulnerable. And I just want to say, finally, of course, we are also in our existential crisis of climate change. Even amid a terrible convergence of crises, we simply cannot take our eyes off the existential crisis for our planet and for our people, and that is of climate change. And those responsible, the richest countries and the richest people, must of course bear the cost. So ultimately, Divya, I know I've started with but I just wanted to share with you that we are facing this convergence of crises and devastating impact, but it's only half the story, because not everyone is faring poorly. We are in this crisis of inequality. It is wealth inequality in countries, it is inequality between countries, inequality in access to vaccines, inequality in decision-making, in power. Our economies and our global economic decision-making structures are captured by the elite, by corporations, and by the wealthiest countries who need to do better in united solidarity with the world at this time. We need new ways, and I am looking forward to discussing these today.
Thank you, Nadia. Thank you. This is a rather grim picture. I'm not sure what we are clapping for. Nadia laid it out for us. We are staring at this wall where the writing is very clear, right? We are on the brink of a precipice, and some of our people, like she mentioned, 71 million, have been pushed off the brink in just 3 months since the war. And we have pharmaceutical billionaires and food billionaires, and inequality is even more stark. And we must remember that inequality didn't come just when the COVID pandemic struck or when the war in Ukraine began. We always had inequality in our communities, right? In our nations. So we had always been, I mean, the ordinary citizens in each of our countries have always been grappling with, a myriad problems, a myriad crises, whether it's at the national level or at the level of the family. And national debt crisis has been lurking. It's not that the pandemic pushed us at it. It is the way the global economy has been set up by people in power. It isn't the ordinary people that have built this kind of global economy which has increased and exacerbated our inequality. So we had a system that was flawed. The COVID pandemic and the Ukraine war has just brought everything to the surface, and everyone is a little worried. When we are in this situation, I would like to ask you, sir, Mr. Webby, the Indonesian G20 presidency, how do you think that the priority issues that you have arrived at the G20 actually respond to the state of play right now, to the fact that we have a debt crisis, a food crisis, a health crisis, and a climate crisis? What is your response to what Nadia presented?
Thank you, Vidya. Thank you, Vidya. Actually, This question is very relevant and fundamental. First, thank you very much, Pak Sugeng Bahagijo, for inviting me to this forum, Bu Bine and all colleagues. Let me convey to you four provocative questions before going to answer the video's questions and comment to Nadia. Now, in the G20, there is an increasing concern about to think about how to strengthen our multilateralism. Because now, in the absence of global leadership, the war in Ukraine and the pandemic, which is not over yet, has exacerbated the current crisis. We are facing a crisis on top of the crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, pandemic is not over yet. Now, geopolitical conflict in Ukraine. War in Ukraine has exacerbated another three crises, which is the food crisis, the energy crisis, and financial crisis. Remains one other crisis, which is maybe not being discussed thoroughly in this forum, which is climate crisis, which, if there is no action taken properly in this case, so we will see in the future, we will face this crisis. So in the absence of the global leadership, so this is the way how the G20 could also engage with the civil society, because you are now as a sounding board. If the political leaders, if the technocrats cannot serve and to solve the global problem, then who will be? Then the civil society organizations. The second question, actually, how to respond to the current crisis. World Food Program has mentioned, Bapak Ibu sekalian, we are enjoying a very fancy room, a very delicious food. But as you know, 320 million in low-income countries now is facing global hunger, according to World Food Program. So this is the way how we think about the global community. G20 as International Forum for Economic Cooperation. We have been flowing four crises so far. 1998, Asia financial crisis, successfully managed. 2008, which is very severe crisis, global financial crisis. All leaders can mobilize $100 trillion to tackle the challenges of the global financial crisis. There is a pandemic crisis in 2020, and nowadays, 2022, geopolitical crisis, war in Ukraine. Even on the last Sherpa meeting and also Finance Track meeting, we are still debating about the three phrases: war against Ukraine, war in Ukraine, and Russia's war against Ukraine. So how do you can imagine to solve the global problem? If as a group we cannot mention, we cannot solve this kind of phrase, just to show what is the current risk of the global economy. So how to solve the global crisis in terms of the food crisis, energy crisis, and financial crisis? I think we should go together. Have to foster a collective actions. And that is why I think Civil 20, Pak Sugeng, is very much concerned on this issue, and I think your voice would be very much considered by the political leaders. The third question, how to foster the concrete action of the G20. You know, and up to this moment, there are 16 leaders' declarations of the G20, 49 communiques of the finance ministers and central bank governors. Some stakeholders mention too much talking without concrete actions. Now that is the way, ladies and gentlemen, how we proceed with a more concrete deliverables. You cannot solve the problem of global hunger with the seminar. You cannot solve the global crisis with only colloquium and also maybe focus group discussion. So we have to mobilize money. We have to mobilize funding. We have to mobilize some efforts to help those in need. That is why I think in the last foreign minister meeting in Bali, as well as the last finance minister and central bank governors meeting in Bali, we try to provide a more concrete action. First, financial intermediary fund. As Pak Kunta mentioned, $1.3 billion. Still small, not enough. The current pandemic crisis has cost $12.9 trillion according to IMF. But the commitment is already there. Comes from 11 members and non-members of G20 and comes from 3 philanthropies. Second, we mobilized 73 billion US dollars from the SDR, Special Drawing Rights of the IMF. How to cope the climate crisis. This is not real money, this is a reserve to help low-income countries. The third, Indonesia, as a G20 presidency, will launch a fiscal support, energy transition mechanism to early retire the current coal power plant to become a more renewable. This is our commitment to climate resilient economy. The fourth, we have produced and published the so-called Capital Adequacy Framework Report. This is how to multilateral development banks, World Bank, the IMF, ADB, AIB, and so on and so forth, to optimize their balance sheet to help the most countries in need. We are hoping to have at least around 500 billion US dollars in balance sheet optimization of the multilateral development banks. And the last, we are thinking about food security. Ladies and gentlemen, food insecurity actually is global hunger. Last seminar in Bali, we have launched a food security program. Nowadays, there are 9 existing initiatives in the world. Global Alliance for Food Security Program, initiated by Germany under G7 presidency. United States has also launched with the IFI, International Financial Institution, for the Food Security Action Plan. China has a Global Development Initiative, IFAD. World Bank, the IMF has provided loans. This is all the scattered program in the world. Now the question is how to strengthen the collaborative efforts, how to tackle the food insecurity problem so that we can go and see the most country, the most people in need could enjoy this help. As for the current situation of the energy crisis we are facing, there is a disruption between a commitment toward the green economy and how to use the current non-renewable energy. This is because of war in Ukraine. That is why I think this, as a sounding board, I'm very much hoping that civil society organization can provide a very good questions to the government, a very good narrative to the leaders, how we see this current problem, how we can compare notes, and how we can foster a solution to be a more concrete action. Last question, how to cope with a future challenge, which is the climate change. We know everybody in this room, maybe, I don't know, comes from many countries. Pak Sugeng mentioned 285 civil society organizations comes from 65 countries. Very powerful movement. But how we think about the future challenge of the climate crisis? How we cope with the transition finance? Is it now helpful for developing countries, for low-income countries to cope with the climate crisis? Is there any enough fund for them to cope with this kind of problem? So this kind of question, I think, should be addressed by all of us. And I think with this forum, I think we can provide a more concrete solution. Thank you. Yeah.
You know, it's wonderful when we feel that people in positions of power are taking very seriously our issues and our perspectives. So this is very good that you have already come up with some answers. But civil society is, you know, sort of always, you know, they look at things and analyze things from the ground up, right? On behalf of communities that we represent. So Civil 20 is there to be a sounding board, to remind you of things. So for example, the first thing that was mentioned, which is the FIF, right? So he mentioned the FIF, Financial Intermediary Fund. There are so many concerns about transparency, accountability. We know how FIs put in money or take money from large multilateral development banks, and it goes down a black hole. People and citizens in our countries do not know where FI funding has gone. Has it really gone for the good of the communities. So we need to see that transparency, since the FIF fund is already instituted, before it rolls out, we need to put in checks and balances so that from the governing body itself, there is civil society monitoring and, from the governing body of the FIF itself, all the way down to how it plays out on the ground. That is something that we are looking at. No, don't smile. We are going to keep pushing at you on that. Okay. And also the ETM. The early transition mechanism. Civil society has been very concerned. Indonesia and the Philippines are going full into the ETM process with the idea that there will be early coal plant retirement. But while it can be a response to the climate crisis, you need to assure us that you will not go into gas, which also is bad for the environment. So any kind of fossil fuel, even fossil gas, is not what an ETM should be pushing towards. From coal to gas is from frying pan to fire. So, but since we have already begun talking about the climate crisis, I'll call upon you, Binny, to tell us what you think. We have had good pro-people sounding pronouncements, IMF drawing rights, all of this. What is your sense from what you heard from our distinguished guest here?
Thank you, Fidya, and thank you, Pak Wempi. I think I would like to propose that your next career probably politician, Pak. Because no, but seriously, Pak, thank you very much for listening to us. Actually, you have responded to all the questions that we need to discuss. But let me just elaborate a little bit. And we've been talking about the reality of our world, and it looks very grim and very grave and gray. But hey, on the other hand, here we are in beautiful surrounding. We are blessed with the advantages to be here and to have the presentation of the presidency of the G20 to be here with us. So we should also look into the positive sides of our life because, hey, life is still long and winding road. So let me just elaborate more about what I think is really important. We are in this room talking about climate crisis, and actually I feel that I'm talking to already the converted. We have Pak Wempi, who is in our side. We have all the CSO colleagues who have the same belief as us, who understand that a climate crisis is real. But we need to talk to people outside the room that climate crisis is real, because up to now there are still people who don't believe that climate crisis is real. How real? In Indonesia, we have mangoes in June. It never happened before. It only happened maybe in the past 3-4 years. And this reminds me to the poet, our famous poet, Sapardi Djoko Damono, who once lamenting about rain in June, that how hard it is for rain to be able to fall in June. But now it is reality. And this reality to me gets even more concerning when we in this room, I think, have the fear that there is a serious risk that countries will not be able to commit to the Paris Agreement to limit the global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. This is real. And we already see all the, human-induced natural disasters. and the level of sea rising. And even though Pak Wempe clearly said, yes, the policies from the G20 is responding to the suffering of the most vulnerable groups in the world. But Pak, having been in the government side once, I know how difficult it is to develop a policy that addresses to everyone needs. When you are policymaker, usually you cannot help but developing a policy that one fits for all. And this is what we don't want to happen. And we do hope that our engagement doesn't stop here, but it will continue way post the presidency of Indonesia and the G20. But let me just remind us all that with the climate crisis, the one who suffer most are actually underdeveloped countries, small island countries, and LDCs. And one of the big problem for them is the financing, because it's not cheap to finance the mitigation and the adaptations for climate crisis. I think I pick up from the working group policy brief on energy and climate change that it requires nearly 300 million US dollar annually for the small island and less developing countries. And yes, we have an internal mechanism for financing to develop climate resilience. But whether that mechanism can be operationalized without adding another burden to the developing countries. Because when international finance mechanism enters into a country, they also need all these prerequisites about how wealthy the country is. It requires whether they're credit worthy and everything. So the devil is always in the details, and I sincerely hope that the details would be in the side of the vulnerable groups. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. I think Binny hit the nail on the head. The devil is in the details, and the details should be on the side of vulnerable groups. And right now, the whole pool of vulnerable groups has really expanded. So there's a lot of work to do. And our next guest, who is joining us online because she couldn't make it here, is Dr. Amalia Adeningar Vidyasanti. She is currently Deputy Minister for Economic Affairs at the Ministry of National Development Planning in Indonesia. That's Bapenas to most of us in the room. She obtained her PhD in economics from the University of Melbourne in Australia in 2005 with her thesis of inflation targeting framework in emerging economies. So there have been some questions put by our guest, Binny. Dr. Amalia, what is your response? What are the details that the G20 leadership and the Indonesian presidency of the G20 have worked out? Can you share with us? Dr. Amalia, we cannot hear you. Maybe you need to be unmuted. No, we cannot. Would you try again?
Yeah,
Yes,
because
perfect. We can hear you. No, not a problem.
Sorry, I was just given the access to unmute myself. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this important forum. And I would like to share with you that Indonesia leadership in G20 is actually one of the important aspects is to really ensure and realize the inclusive recovery when we are dealing with these uncertainties and global shocks that we are now facing. So inclusiveness will be the key factor that we can recover together and recover stronger. And inclusiveness also highlights the value of partnership between diverse multi-stakeholders as the key to building a breakthrough platform to enable transformation in various fields, and also to ensure inclusiveness. Indonesia presidency is also committed to paying a greater attention to micro, small, and medium enterprises as one of the priority agendas in both finance and Sherpa tracks. Digitalization, for sure, is focusing to reduce digital gap and digital divide, and ensuring, for example, preparing and promoting policy options on digital financial inclusion and financing for MSMEs are actually being explored during the Indonesian presidency to really facilitate the expansion, diversification, and the recovery of MSMEs in the G20 member countries. And the other one is that, which is also important in this global situation, that we also is experiencing the global supply chain shocks, right? So meaning that we need to build a collaborative effort to really recover the global supply chain, especially in the G20 member countries. And one of them, of course, we are focusing on how can we enhance the role of micro, small, and medium enterprises in the global value chain. And it is very important for sure when the MSMEs really participate more in the global value chains, we can create more job opportunities. And also inclusiveness is really tackle for people with disabilities, especially in the workplace, empower the women-owned micro, small, medium enterprises, and also promoting the inclusive labor market towards changing the work environment, and also to really target a certain groups to benefit from the effort of economic recovery that are now really in a challenging situation. And one of them probably I would like to share with you regarding to what is the development working group is really formulating the strategies to strengthen the recovery and resilience required to withstand future crises in developing countries, including the less developed countries and small island developing states. And this effort is to scale up private blended finance, climate actions, green economy, and also blue economy, as well as that we really put forward the blended finance strategies that this can really help countries to recover faster and also to mitigate the risk of these uncertainties and the challenging situation that we are now facing. I'll stop there and thank you.
Is that it? Thank you. Thank you. So I think this focus on MSMEs is really important. In our countries, unemployment is growing. There is serious frustration and the threat of hunger and families going into a vicious debt cycle. So a focus on MSMEs is really welcome. Let's go on to our final speaker, who is joining us online. Tove Maria Riding leads the tax justice team in Eurodad. Eurodad is the European Network on Debt and Development. It's a network of over 50 NGOs from 28 European countries working on issues related to development finance. So really up the street of Dr. Amalia and Mr. Wempe. So she coordinates policy and advocacy campaign initiatives focused on making multinational enterprises pay their fair share of tax and has monitored and commented on issues related to international tax matters for a number of years. This includes the OECD-led inclusive framework process, which was mandated by the G20 to produce new global tax rules for corporate taxation and the revitalized economy. Tove is a member of the Coordination Committee of the Global Alliance for Tax Justice, GADJ, and is the author of a proposal for a United Nations Convention on Tax, which Eurodad and the Global Alliance for Tax Justice published just in March this year. Tove, you've heard some of civil society's recommendations and thoughts. You've heard the response from the Indonesian presidency of the G20. We know you are pushing for a for a UN tax convention, and it's never easy to push at the OECD. What are your thoughts right now? Are you still hopeful? I remember I began that we want to be hopeful in these dire times. We want that there is singing and that our voices reach in this time of crisis. Are you hopeful, Tove?
Yes, thank you so much for the invitation and for this very inspiring dialogue. I would say, yes, I am hopeful. Not because we're seeing governments take the responsibility that they should, but because we do have a very alert and aware civil society, and especially the global inequality crisis that Nadia was outlining is becoming clear. I think from the highest levels of society and to the places where inequality is really felt the worst, there is awareness that this is at the core of all the crises that we're talking about. It's also important that we now start zooming out on the G20 process and evaluating a bit on how it's gone, because it's clear that we're going from global crisis to global crisis and from G20 communique to G20 communique. One is tempted to say that the road to global crisis is paved with G20 communiques, and it's very important we start discussing why are things not changing? Why is the world still becoming more unequal? And why are we not seeing a more stable and sustainable international economic system? And one very central problem in this is the way that G20 has misunderstood its task. G20 is made up of 19 countries and the European Union. This is no place to decide global economic rules. It's often said that G20 represents 85% of global GDP as a reason why the G20 decisions are important. And it's true that it is important what the leaders of G20 are saying. But we cannot have them make global rules just because they are big and powerful and wealthy countries. That would be a bit like saying if a man owns half of the wealth in a country, he should be allowed to make the rules. We cannot have the biggest and richest countries dominate the international rulemaking, because that would obviously lead to rules that reinforce inequality, because the countries will take care of their own interests first. And the issue of taxation is a great example of why this is not working. We have seen the G20 work closely together with the OECD to write a package of proposed new global rules that were sent out last year. And we had a process that is highly dominated by the OECD countries. We had more than a third of the world's countries were not part of the negotiation. And for the least developed countries, it was 2/3 of them that were absent from the negotiations. If we look at the African continent, half of the countries were not participating in the negotiations. But equally important, we saw some of the developing countries say no to the outcome because the outcome was not in their interest. We saw Kenya and Nigeria and Pakistan and Sri Lanka say no to support the outcome of the OECD-led negotiations. And the outcome was adopted anyway. And that is the problem, is that we basically have a crisis of global cooperation. So this is not to say that G20 doesn't have an extremely important role to play, but it's important that G20 starts focusing on cleaning up its own backyard. The vast majority of the world's multinational corporations are headquartered in one of the G20 countries or in the European Union. So they are extremely important as home countries of multinationals and of investors. They play a huge role in the global economic problems that we're seeing. So cleaning up their own backyard and then committing to cooperating with the rest of the world. The problem we have with the debt crisis is that we don't have global rules to solve debt crises when they occur. We don't have a way of making sure that human rights are respected when a debt crisis is resolved. Those rules are simply lacking. So we need a real inclusive global process to have new rules on how to resolve debt crisis. And this needs to happen at the United Nations, where all countries are equal. And indeed, the last thing I want to mention is that, yes, we have tabled a proposal for what a UN tax convention could look like. Why have we done that? Well, we continue to see governments lose hundreds of billions of dollars every year because of tax havens and international tax abuse. It's very, very clear that we cannot afford to ignore that problem. It's also very clear that the OECD package from last year is not going to solve this. But we did not come up with the idea of having a UN tax convention. This is a proposal that's been put forward by the Africa Group at the United Nations. And so the entire African continent is standing together and calling for the UN to negotiate a convention to solve this problem. And we really call on the G20 to support this African leadership that we're seeing. And our proposal for a convention is one example of what such a UN convention could look like. And we really want to start the debate about how do we create an international system that puts an end to tax havens and creates a just and fair international tax system that treats the poorest countries on an equal level with the richest countries and finds fair solutions to make sure that we don't have wealthy individuals and multinational corporations that keep buying their way out of the national tax systems. Because the problem we're seeing is that when the richest are not paying taxes, governments turn to taxes on the poorest to finance the holes in the budget. And it all leads to the same problem, whether it's austerity or whether it's regressive taxes. We're basically making the inequality problem worse instead of solving it. So this is the proposal that we've tabled, and it's one out of many examples of how we need the G20 to reinforce global cooperation between governments as opposed to replace it. And we need to learn from the many mistakes of the past. I thank you again.
Thank you, Tove. So Tove has thrown a challenge to the G20 leadership in her mild manner, but definitely a challenge. So I was wondering, you've just had what we call the third meeting of the ministers of finance and the central bank governors. What have you decided and how can you move forward? Tove has also told you of the distrust of civil society and many developing nations on OECD-run negotiations, and the fact that even the G20 cannot hope to decide the economic system of the entire world because you're just 19 countries plus the EU. The EU, which is currently not in a very strong position. In this global scenario, how do you think the G20 can really contribute to, what did she say? She called for a better economic system that serves everyone and that is based on human rights. How will the G20 serve that better economic system that we all, like all civil society activists, are basically dreamers of a better world for themselves and their communities. How can you help service that dream?
Thank you, Vidya. Actually, for sure, we will transfer all the current challenge to India presidency next year. So no, this is actually a long-term question and answers. So let me provide you with the last third finance central bank governance meeting. We have 6 agendas on the table. First on the global economy and risks. The second on the health issues. And the third on the international financial architecture. The fourth on sustainable finance, on the infrastructure, on the fifth, and the last of the international taxation. On the global economy and risk, the presidency has issued the so-called presidency note, how to cope with the exit strategy and the scarring effect from the pandemic. Actually, this is not what you call it, a binding document, but just a reference for each country, especially those in G20 members, to see how we can examine a well-calibrated, well-communicated plan or strategy in terms of the exit strategy, so that most of the advanced countries can also promote. If they would like to have, a more progressive plan, let's say on the interest rates, monetary policy tightening, then this policy could be communicated to the rest of the world. This kind of policy notes has been issued by the Indonesia presidency and hopefully to be a reference for those countries in the G20 members as well as the rest of the world. The second thing, we are facing still a potential of the fragmentation inside G20 because the war in Ukraine. If the war is not ended soon, so the risk has exacerbated to all the crises we have mentioned before, on the food crisis, on the energy crisis, on the financial crisis. So the most problem on the table have to be solved is how to end the war. On the health architecture, we, as Vidya mentioned very eloquently, financial intermediate fund is part of the actions, is part of the efforts, which is more concrete one, to provide a global financing for the pandemic PPR, pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response. As you know, in our global pandemic PPR, there is a gap around 10.5 billion US dollars. And this should be allocated into the national level and also the global level. How we can benefit from this financial intermediate fund? There is a governance structure discussion until up to this moment, and hopefully will be concluded within September this year. So the C20, I would like to encourage you to give some advice on how to cope with a more robust governance structure of the financial intermediary fund, about the benefits of the fund. What would the position of the implementing entities? Who can benefit from the G20 members, non-G20 members, civil society, international organization, so on and so forth. And how we can also examine the accountability of this implementation. On the international financial architecture agenda, we have succeeded last year on 2021, providing 12.9 billion US dollars a debt service suspension initiative for 48 countries, most of them in African countries, which is low-income countries. Now we are discussing the so-called common framework for debt treatment. This is very challenging one. There is a very dynamic discussion between the Paris Club people and the non-Paris Club people. And you guys know very well about this condition, how this debt distress are happening in many countries. Sri Lanka, Vidya has mentioned. Maybe later on there are another countries in the table should be resolved for this debt distress. On the sustainable finance, we are providing a discussion on 3 issues. About the strategy, transition toward the green economy. The second, how to increase the accessibility and affordability of the financial sustainable finance instrument. And the last, how the government could provide a policy incentive to expedite this transition toward the green economy. This already discussed, not yet conclusive. I would like to tell you, and please provide some concrete action in terms how to mobilize the financing from the advanced countries into the developing nations. On the infrastructure, there is a very good discussion on how to increase the inclusivity. Dr. Amalia mentioned the infrastructure inclusivity is not only for the central government, but also include the local government, include the youth, include the women. There are two problems: how to make and how to promote a bankable projects. We are very much hoping that we have a project to be much more bankable. But the investor would like to see whether these projects is comply with the international standards, with ESG standard. That is why the framework on this infrastructure development, especially how to promote the bankable projects, is one of the questions we are now discussing in the infrastructure agenda. The second thing, how to increase the participation of the private sector. So the government money is not enough to finance the infrastructure development. We need the private sector money. But the private sector money needs also a guarantee from the government. They need also what you call it a blended finance strategy in this case. On the last international taxation agenda, as Tove mentioned, there are pillar 1 and pillar 2, ladies and gentlemen. Pillar 1 is how to optimize the multinational corporation taxation rights, especially those in the companies which is based in some countries but operation worldwide. There is a taxing right should be allocated within countries that benefit from this revenue. The second thing on pillar 2 is a global effective minimum tax. There is very long discussion on this issue, still debating on what is the influence to a developing nation, whether this could also, give a disincentive for investment, or maybe also this is a part of the developing advanced country strategy to dominate in the global effective minimum tax. So this is, I think, discussion on the international taxation. Hopefully, if I'm not mistaken, from the OECD Inclusive Framework, they have a plan to conclude this multilateral convention signing in the next year, in the mid-2023.
Thank you. It's wonderful when you have an open discussion with those who have power vested in them. We only hope that this kind of open policy dialogue will continue, and that you're not just listening to one side, but listening most to people who are representing people and communities on the ground, not just the profiteers. So. Oh, absolutely. We will invite you again and again, and we'll keep talking to you. We will not give up hope. We know it's an uphill task, but we are here for the long haul. We have completely run out of time. But I must ask you to say what your response is to what Vempi Saputra said in just 1 minute. Would you be able to?
Right. Just 2 key points, but I think the challenge when we talk about climate crisis and how we can protect the vulnerable, I think it's a policy coherence. So we need the leadership of the Indonesian presidency to develop a coherence policy to address the impact of climate crisis to the most vulnerable groups, and to also ensure, Pak, that the gender perspective and the climate justice should be the foundations of the policy development. And by that, I would like to reiterate what my CSO colleagues have been calling, that we need meaningful, impactful participations. If we launch some protests, please don't arrest us, but listen to us. And we are friends. Thank you so much.
Right, right. Please listen to us, even if we are protesting. It is our right to do so. Nadia, 1 minute. I'm sorry I'm pushing you into saying it in bite size.
In bite size then. Okay, so I will give headline, and I just want to say that yes, while the world cannot change just through one seminar, it may be unfortunately so, the world can change through G20 communiques. And so we do hope to see strong action come out of there. We need vaccine equity. We need to give countries the right to make their own vaccines and treatments. We need to control food and energy prices much better, and we need an urgent economic rescue plan. We need more resources. We need more aid. It cannot be diverted from countries. We need additional resources. On SDR, special drawing rights, yes, the 73 billion is welcome in terms of reallocations from rich to lower income countries. We need to reach at minimum the $100 billion target. And go beyond that, and it needs to be concessional and in a way that is not, adding conditionality to countries. And we need to start thinking about whether a new SDR issuance should be even on the table as well. On debt, the common framework that was mentioned, it has been slow, it has been taking too long, and it is not enough. We need wide-scale debt cancellation, and this crisis has shown us that we need a more inclusive and fair debt workout mechanism to address these things in the longer term. We need to raise revenues, and we need to address inequality well. And my colleague from Eurodad spoke about international tax reform. Let me just say that we need more. We need windfall taxes to end this crisis profiteering, to raise revenues, and to take from where it is being hoarded at the top. And then finally, let me say that in all of this, we need this new infrastructure to include inequality as its primary purpose, as its founding principles to reduce inequality. And so let me end with talking about the Financial Intermediary Fund, because it has been raised so many times. We're calling for this fund to be a moment where we are establishing governance in a way that addresses the imbalance of power, not replicating the same mistakes over and over. So this fund should be inclusive, globally balanced, multi-stakeholder board of directors with equal voice for recipient and donor governments, and the recipient governments to have voting power, and for civil society to be represented with voting power. This is an opportunity to get it right. So these are rules that can be changed. They're not laws of the universe. Thank you.
We shall change them. Indeed, Nadia, we shall change them. We're here to do it. Speedy debt crisis resolution, a whole vaccine equity, etc. Dr. Amalia, in 1 minute, is it doable? Does the G20 have it in them to really do something about the long list of demands from civil society that Nadia just put before you? Can the G20 do this?
Yes, I just would like to highlight 3 key points from this our discussion that we have today. The first one is that to make it concrete, then international cooperation is the key to really make it concrete and also to mitigate the risk of any crisis in the future. And the second point is that we have we have to get a common concerns and common objective so we can concretize our concern. And number 3, leadership. So leadership is expected to be able to deliver a strong and prudent policy interventions to mitigate the risk and also to implement what we are planning. So again, Indonesia cannot deliver the concrete initiatives for actions unless the other G20 members share the similar faith, similar and common concerns, and also a similar effectiveness. So we hope that G20 will be the catalyst for inclusive recovery in our world.
Thank you, Dr. Amalia. Thank you. We all have common concerns, all of us in the room and on Zoom today. But as you said, we have to see whether the rest of the G20 leadership show that common concern. Tove, 1 minute, the last word.
Thank you so much. It's very important that the G20 governments don't just focus on blending finance and using public resources to provide guarantees and support and bankable projects to multinational corporations. We need to make sure they pay tax, and we need to make sure that small and medium enterprises can compete with large multinational corporations. So governments have a crucial role in regulating and in making sure that multinational corporations adhere to the laws in all the countries where they operate. And lastly, the G20 needs to cooperate with the rest of the world. The debt suspension initiative, Pillar 1 and Pillar 2, these are failed solutions. And what went wrong was the G20 failed to work with the other countries. It's time to have real global solutions, and the place to do that is at the United Nations. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think that is a caution that is well received. Because really, I need to thank everyone in the room who brought your energy and pushed at our panelists to give it their best shot. And I think what Tove said last is very important. We cannot just be enablers so that profiteers will become billionaires through our multiple crises. We have to monitor, we have to put in measures that see that everything is accountable and ensures an equitable world for all our people. Thank you so much. As he said, we will invite you again and again to many more policy dialogues. And I invite all of you to join us in pushing the G20 to really respond well to what civil society is saying to them. And we are going to walk the talk so that we keep pushing them to keep them accountable to us. Thank you so much, those of you there. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And a virtual handshake to those of you there. Thank you so much, Dr. Amalia, Nadia, Tove. Thank you, you've been a wonderful audience. And now we have dinner for all of you, after which we break into the policy discussions that we will have one-on-one with the G20 working groups and the C20 working groups working together. Here you go.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, big round of applause for Vidya Dinker. Thank you so much, Vidya. You're such a very, very great speakers, moderator, and of course, firefighter for us. And of course, sekali lagi terima kasih buat Ibu Bini dan juga Bapak WMP. Can we give a big round of applause for our speaker? And of course, our lovely moderator. Yes, just like Vidya said earlier, that right now, we will have a dinner time. And of course, after the prayer and dinner break, we will have a breakout room session for a bilateral meeting between working groups of the C20 and G20. And of course, I would like to have your attention, please, because I would have some very important information. The first one, the dinner is located at the foyer area, which is in front of our ballroom, and we will have around 30 minutes until 90:45. Again, the dinner time is quite quick, everyone. It's okay. It's about 30 minutes until 90:45 Indonesian time. And of course, after this, for the VIP guests and all the readers, please take your time to take a picture at the photo booth. Once again, for the VIP guests and all the leaders, please make a time to take a picture at the photo booth. And of course, for the in-person participant, about the location of the breakout room. First one, for gender equality and disability working room is in this ballroom. Once again, for gender equality and disability working group is in this ballroom. And then for the environment and climate justice and energy transition WIGI is in Puri Asri 3 and 4. Once again, for gender equality and disability, for environment and climate justice and energy transition in Puri Asri 3 and Puri Asri 4. Di Puri Asri 3 dan juga Puri Asri 4 ya Bapak Ibu. And the next one is for anti-corruption WG is in Puri Asri 2. For anti-corruption WG is in Puri Asri 2. Hold on for a minute. And of course, for education and digitalization and civic speech WG is in Puri Asri 3 and Puri Asri 5. Untuk Education, Digitization, and Civic Space ada di Puri Asri 3 dan juga Puri Asri 5. Lalu, next one for Taxation and Sustainable Finance is in Puri Asri 1. Untuk Taxation dan juga Sustainable Finance akan ada di ruangan Puri Asri 1. Second one, and Vaccine and Access and Global Health WG is in Antasena 3. Untuk Vaccine Access and Global Health WG ada di Antasena 3. Last one for SDGs and Humanitarian WG is in Antasena 4. For SDG and Humanitarian ada di ruangan Antasena 4. Sudah cukup jelas ya Bapak Ibu semuanya ya? All clear, all good. So once again, thank you so much. Please have a good dinner and of course, have a good discussion after dinner. My name is Maria Christy. It's time for me to signing out and see you at the second day. Bye now.
The world is facing an unprecedented time where society, the government, and corporations need to move at the same pace and at the same time. Collaboration and breaking the barrier collectively is needed so everyone can recover together and stronger. The Civil 20 represents the voices that are at the heart of every policy made by the people in power. These voices are essential to all the lives on this planet. Voices on the well-being of migrant workers and vulnerable groups, on access of global health and vaccines, on women empowerment and equality, to the issue of the environment sustainability. These will be fought for through 7 working groups: vaccine access and global health, gender equality, environment, climate justice and energy transition, taxation and sustainable finance, SDGs and humanitarian, education, digitalization and civic space, and anti-corruption.
So COVID disrupted the school systems across the Pacific in every capacity. So even at university level, our biggest university, the University of the South Pacific, wasn't able to help their students stay in contact and finish their units and their courses.
We needed a lot of vaccines to come. For instance, since December, we have run out of stock of AstraZeneca. So there are many people who maybe took first jab and they are waiting to take the second jab.
Yang wira swasta ya, yang utama sekali yang paling dirasanya ekonomi. Kita nggak bisa kadang-kadang kalau kayak kaki 5 kita dagang begini, waktu kita dibatasin, prokes ya wajib lah kita kondisi lagi begini kan. Itu aja kalau dampaknya gitu.
Masih banyak paradigma bahwa kami itu adalah orang-orang yang dikutuk, orang-orang yang menularkan suatu penyakit.
Recently, the Japanese government is promoting gender equality, but the progress is slower than planned. The gender gap in Japan is the largest among OECD countries. The youth are not happy living with conventional gender stereotypes.
These are the actual challenges that we need to address together. The voices, ideas, innovations, and solidarity of the society are key to a change at scale. The Civil 20 brings these voices to the table of dialogue with the government and the people who are accountable for the change.
I think that what governments can do, especially the government in Fiji, is allocate more funds for education. So we need more teachers and we need more support for teachers.
The government has to procure more vaccines to support the citizens or engage more development partners who will support us so that we get more vaccines in the country.
Pemda pemerintah pusat buat membuka lapangan kerja yang nggak berbelit-belit persyaratannya, terutama kayak yang tamatan SMP, mereka cuman punya ijazah SMP buat bersaing. Ini kan susah gitu.
Tolonglah hadir di tengah-tengah penyandang disabilitas, perhatikan untuk dari sisi kehidupan kami ini, terutama dari sisi ekonomi. Lakukan pemberdayaan yang bersentuhan langsung seperti wirausaha, karena sesadar-sadarnya bahwa penyandang disabilitas itu satu, tidak semua memiliki latar belakang pendidikan yang baik.
Thanks to the civil society, we have seen some improvement, but there is still so much more to do. We, the youth, are striving for a Japanese society that respects individual people and their choices.
This is the time for us to work together and tackle challenges with the people and for the people, collaborating hand in hand so we can give everyone the opportunity to not just survive, but also to thrive. Breaking the barrier of borders, ideologies, and beliefs, ensuring that no one will ever be left behind. It is time to move together to recover stronger. We're here to make your voices matter. We're here to make sure that you are heard.
Record.